big events that happen unexpectedly in your life that take all of your attention away from your training, your dog, whatever it may be. Right?
Okay.
And I want to just kind of go through these. And today is going to be the kind of Cliff Notes version of go through them and just give some tips and tricks, tell some stories, stuff like that. And kind of, give you the broad summary of all of these. And then maybe what we'll do is over the next couple of episodes, we'll dive really deep into each one of them.
Okay.
Right? So let's start off by what started this, right? Well, what started this is there's 3 individual people that I either know or am working with that have experienced all of these situations, and we've been coming up with solutions on how to help them navigate those situations, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with one. So we get a dog that we worked with earlier this year, did a board and train with us, massive crate anxiety issues, right? Helped him totally get past it, right? Did phenomenal, like literally like not even a single problem, right?
Yeah.
We even had like a review from the client that was like, oh my God, this is how incredible this dog is doing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So about 2 months ago, I just found this out yesterday through one of my trainers. It's a client that one of my trainers is working with, right?
Yep.
Just found out yesterday, 2 months ago, this individual's child, their son, right, adult son, had like a massive brain injury or something.
Oh,
right? Like serious, like horrible, whatever thing happened,
life-altering.
right? Life-altering thing happened, right? Uprooted this family's life. They had to move from Cleveland out of state somewhere to go be with the son, to help him go through, the recovery process, surgery, get back on his feet, physical therapy, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And basically in this process, the dog has made a complete 180 in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right? Like reverted right back to like really terrible crate anxiety issues, right? Just struggling with the issues all over again.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And understandably so, the client was really concerned, not with us, but just like, oh my gosh, like, did I ruin all of the hard work that I did, right? Like, how do I get back on track with this? Like, it's so concerning, the behavior that we're seeing again, et cetera, right? So spoke with my trainer yesterday because we just found out about this, right? And needed to come up with a game plan to help them through it because now they're out of state, right? So we need to help them virtually overcome this problem.
For sure.
And the first question was like, well, like, how do we navigate this situation? Well, the first thing we need to do is, and this goes hand in hand with a couple posts that we've made recently, is approach the situation with empathy, right?
Yeah.
Like we've said this a million times before. Unfortunately, fortunately, whatever you want to say, people come before dogs, right? Yeah. So, like, if your priorities for the last 2 months have been basically just, I don't want to say neglecting the dog or neglecting the dog's training, but like that has been the lowest thing on your list of priorities as you're helping your son overcome the issues. First off, that's okay, right? That's understandable. But also, that's understandable that the dog's behavior obviously would revert, right? For sure. A lot of times when we see dogs that struggle with kennel anxiety or struggle with serious separation anxiety or any of those types of things, they're like unstable dogs at their core. You know what I mean? And we've said this a million times. Like, we don't fix those behaviors. It's not like you just like flick a switch with training and the dog's like, all right, past it, never going to be a problem ever again. These dogs don't handle change well, right? They don't handle their life being restructured very well unless you're providing the right direction for them. Again, another thing we say all the time is training isn't about fixing the dog. It's about figuring out what the dog needs in order to thrive. Yeah. Right? So this dog, we figured out what this individual dog needed in order to thrive. The owners were able to implement that, which is why everything was great, right? But because that direction went away as they had a major life change and they were no longer able to provide what the dog needed in order to thrive, you see the dog revert back to its original behaviors, right? Now, sure, it's concerning. We don't want to see the behavior, but it should be positive from the standpoint of, you've seen, we had a blueprint of this is how we got past it last time. This is how we provided what the dog needed in order to thrive. And I think all owners need in that situation is just to be reminded of what those steps are again. And as long as they can go back through that process, you'll get past it no problem. It shouldn't be a major setback. It should be like, all right, this wasn't great over the last 2 months, right? It's not ideal. But the second we get back on track with things, the dog's behavior should go right back to where we want it to be. right?
Yeah.
So basically all we did was Bridget was able to compile an email of here are the step-by-step things we did last time. Last time when you were in this exact same position, we started, and first and foremost, we did this. Second, we did this. Third, we did this. Fourth, we did this, et cetera, et cetera. Now, all you have to do is just for the next 3 or 4 days, go back through those steps, and you'll be right back to where you were before.
Yeah.
But this leads to an interesting conversation of foreseeing ahead. Like, this is an impossible thing to foresee ahead, right?
Yeah.
But trying to do your best to figure out in a situation like this, if you do have a massive change, predicting that that massive change will impact your dog in some way, figure out what was the like worst case scenario of what the dog used to do before without the provided direction. So in this dog's case, it was like, you know, be a mess in the crate, basically. You know, it wasn't anything like detrimental, right?
Yeah.
Like the dog is going to be okay if it's being a mess in the crate for another month or two before you get this back on track.
Yeah.
But in other cases, if you have a dog that has a history of like aggression issues or whatever it may be, you've got to understand that when that major life change happens, you could self-reflect for a minute and say, is this going to take my attention away from my dog for a little bit? And if it is, you've got to figure out a temporary solution as far as either being able to still provide that for your dog or to be able to manage the behavioral issues that may inevitably come back up so you don't run into any major problems. Because in this case, like I said, being a mess in the crate isn't going to be anything that's going to get the dog or the owner into serious trouble. Yeah. But biting somebody because you stopped providing the direction that the dog needs might be, right? Or, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of situation number one is, you know, it's hard because, like I said, I look at this empathetically and I'm like, oh my God, horrible, tragic, major life thing that happened to this owner.
Yeah.
Of course that's going to take your time away from your dog. But how do we help owners navigate situations like this that may come up where it doesn't impact the dog too much, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's tough in that
It's
situation,
tough.
though.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't have an answer exactly for that, aside from just be as self-aware as possible with those things, you know?
Literally.
Put somebody else on dog duty for a little bit.
That would be a good one.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like a lot of times we talk about, you know, like a check-in, check-out system with people. Like inevitably there's, I feel like one party in the house that really heads the show on dog training, you know? And if that person is going to be tied up for a little bit, you've got to pass the torch, right? Yeah. So like generally, you know, if my wife is on dog duty with the dogs and she's going to be really preoccupied for a little bit, on a minor scale, if like we have a bunch of people over the house and the dogs are out, she'll pass the torch and literally like tap me in like, hey, you're in charge of the dogs right now, right? So you're up, right? Like do the things that you need to do to help these dogs so that their attention can be taken away from it, right? Some people and families will do that with parents, and then if they have like adult children in the house, they'll have them they'll all kind of tag in and out. But sometimes it needs to be like a longer term thing, right? Like let's say, I don't know, let's say you have you and Devin got Bender, right? And let's say Devin usually heads the show on Bender's training, right? And she's gonna, I don't know, for 3 months, study ridiculously hard for some certification course she needs to take in something.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's going to take a lot of her attention away from the dog.
Yeah.
Right? Or let's say her mom gets really sick and she needs to go care for her for 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? That's obviously going to take away from all the attention that she's able to put into Bender.
Yep.
Right? That has to be discussed amongst the household. We have to keep it in mind enough to say, you know what, Josh, for the next 6 months, it's your responsibility to make sure that this dog doesn't regress too much with its training.
Yep.
Right? And I'm sure it's easier said than done in those situations, but you've got to be mindful of that. Got to be mindful of that if you don't want to run into major setbacks. And when I say major setbacks, like I said, you can always get back on track with things.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think even though it might be easy to get back on track from the standpoint of, all right, we wrote out these bullet point things, all you got to do is go back through these steps, right? Sometimes, though, that seems so easy, mentally, psychologically, it's really hard for an owner to look at their dog and be like, oh my God, you've regressed so much, and I've got to do all this work to get you back on track. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
that sometimes is the hardest part.
Yeah.
It's like we were just talking a minute ago about like working out and dieting, right? Like how many times have you started a diet or a workout program and it's like you make so much progress and then you stop for 2 months, right? And then it's like, well, all you need to do is just do it again.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like psychologically, it's God, I came so far and then lost it, right?
Yep.
So it's like so mentally hard to just start doing it again.
Yeah.
Right?
It really is.
As opposed to when you're in the groove with it and
Yeah.
you don't stop, maybe a day or here or there or whatever, but like you're on it consistently. You don't have a major setback of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's easy to just keep the momentum going then at that
It is.
point, right?
100%, yeah.
So I think that's really the key with it, is not that it's tricky to get back on track from the physical things that you need to do, but mentally overcoming the hurdle of like, I made so much progress and then lost it.
Yeah.
Putting in the work to then get that progress back can be, I think, really, really taxing on people sometimes.